My brother yelled, "Your kid's always behind." My daughter didn't like it and she pushed him. Then I said calmly, "Thanks for clarifying. I'll end the payments for your son's private lessons. And that's not all." My dad coughed, "Let's not do this." So my brother called my 10-year-old daughter, not even that good, in front of our entire family. At a barbecue. While I was literally paying his daughter's private school tuition. And you know what my little girl did? She walked right up to him and pushed him. A 10-year-old shoved a grown man in front of 30 relatives, and honestly, I wasn't even mad at her. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Jolene, I'm 36, I live outside of Richmond, Virginia, and what happened at that barbecue destroyed my relationship with my brother, and then rebuilt it into something I never expected. Let me start from the beginning because you're going to need the full picture. My brother Marcus is 2 years older than me. Growing up, he was the golden child. You know the type, right? My dad, Raymond, treated Marcus like he could walk on water. Football star, bigger bedroom, got a car at 16 while I rode the bus until I was 19. But I never hated him for it. He's my brother. I loved him. That's actually the whole problem. About 4 years ago, Marcus went through a nasty divorce. His ex-wife Tamara took almost everything, and suddenly Marcus couldn't keep up with mortgage payments, car payments, or the tuition for his daughter Sloane, who goes to a private school outside Charlottesville. And who did he come to for help? Not our dad. Not our uncle. Me. Because while Marcus was living his glory days, I was building a small logistics company from scratch. Funny how the kid who rode the bus turned out to be the one with the stable income. So I started helping him. First a couple hundred here and there, then Sloane's tuition, $1,400 a month. Then his mortgage when he fell behind. My husband Derek kept saying, "Jolene, he's using you." And I'd say, "He's my brother." Do you think I was being naive? Because I definitely was. I just didn't want to admit it yet. Now let me tell you about my daughter Bria. She's 10 and she's something special. She started violin lessons last year and her teacher, Miss Calloway, told us she has a rare natural ear. So at family events people want to hear her play. My mom Loretta records every performance. My grandmother, Nana Pearl, 82 years old and still running Sunday dinners. She stops everything to listen. And Bria loves it. She plays, she does her little bow, people clap. It's the sweetest thing. But Marcus's daughter Sloane started getting jealous. She's 12 and I get it, kids want attention too. That's normal. What's not normal is what Marcus did about it. 3 weeks before the barbecue he called me and actually asked me to tell Bria to stop playing violin at family gatherings because Sloane felt overshadowed. Thought he was joking. He wasn't. He literally said, "Maybe just don't bring the violin next time." He wanted me to shrink my daughter so his daughter could feel bigger. Can you imagine asking that? I called my mom after. Loretta listened and said, "Your brother has always wanted the spotlight without doing the work. Don't you dare punish Bria for shining." He was right. But I still didn't want to start anything, so I figured I'd just go to the barbecue and let things be. The barbecue was at my Aunt Denise's place outside Fredericksburg. Beautiful property, big backyard, smoker going, the whole deal. Everyone came, my parents, Nana Pearl, my cousin Rochelle, Uncle Victor, tons of family. For the first couple hours, everything was fine. Then Nana Pearl called out, "Bria baby, did you bring that violin? Play something for Nana." Bria looked at me, I nodded, and she played this gorgeous Vivaldi piece. Everyone gathered around. Mom was recording. Aunt Denise had tears in her eyes. Cousin Rochelle said, "This child is going to be famous." And Bria was glowing. Then Sloane said loudly from the back, "This is so boring. Why does she always have to show off?" The yard went dead silent. And before I could even react, Marcus stepped forward and said, in front of everyone, "Sloane's right. It's always about Bria. Your kid's always the center of attention and she's not even that good. She's behind most kids her age. You're setting her up for embarrassment." My 10-year-old daughter heard every word. My mom covered her mouth. Nana Pearl set down her lemonade, which if you knew her, is basically a declaration of war. And Bria, my sweet, quiet Bria, got this look on her face I'd never seen before. She walked straight up to Marcus and pushed him. Hard. Both hands. He actually stumbled back. Half the yard gasped. The other half almost cheered. My dad immediately jumped in, hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Let's all calm down," he said. Classic Raymond, always protecting his boy. Then he looked at me and said, "Jolene, maybe take Bria inside." Like she was the problem. Like a 10-year-old was the villain here and not the grown man who just tore her apart publicly. That's when I felt it. That cold, calm clarity. I looked at Marcus and said quietly, "Thanks for clarifying, Marcus. I'll be ending the payments for Sloane's private school tuition. And that's not all." My dad coughed. "Let's not do this." But I had already decided. I was done being nice to people who didn't deserve it. You should have seen Marcus's face. The exact moment it hit him, the tuition, the mortgage help, the safety net he'd had for 4 years. Gone. Just like that. And I know what you're thinking. Did I really mean it, or was it just anger talking? Oh, I meant it. Every word. But what happened next? When we got home that night, my husband Derek said something to me I wasn't expecting, and it completely changed how I handled everything that came after. Let me tell you, things were about to get so much worse before they got better. So when we got home from that barbecue, I was shaking. Not from anger, from adrenaline. I put Bria to bed, kissed her forehead, told her she did nothing wrong. Then I sat on the couch with Derek, expecting him to say, "I told you so." But instead he said, "Jolene, don't cut him off in anger. Cut him off with a plan. Because if you do this emotionally, your dad is going to make you the villain." And that's exactly what Raymond tried to do. Next morning, hadn't even finished my coffee, my dad called. Did he ask about Bria? Did he ask if his granddaughter was okay after being publicly humiliated? Well, first thing he said was, "Jolene, you need to apologize to your brother for what you said about the payments. You embarrassed him." I embarrassed him. Let that sink in. Would you stay calm hearing that? Because I barely did. I said, "Dad, Marcus insulted my child in front of everyone." And he said, "She's a kid. Kids forget. But Marcus depends on that money. You're going to ruin his life over a comment." Over a comment. Like telling a 10-year-old she's not good enough in front of her entire family is just some casual remark. I told him I'd think about it just to end the call. But I wasn't thinking. I was planning. First, I called Sloane's school. I'd been paying them directly, $1,400 a month, so I told them I'd be stopping at the end of the month. Then I looked at the mortgage help. $800 a month for the past year. When I sat down and actually added everything up over 4 years, the number made me sick. Close to $90,000. $90,000. For a man who just humiliated my daughter because his kid got jealous. Derek looked at the numbers with me and didn't even speak. He didn't have to. I stopped everything. Tuition, mortgage help, all of it. And that's when the family split right down the middle. My dad called 3 more times that week. My uncle Victor, who barely speaks to me normally, left a voicemail saying, "Family takes care of family. You're being petty." Petty. $90,000 and I'm the petty one. I almost laughed. But then the other side showed up. My mom Loretta called me in tears. She said, "Marcus was wrong and your father is wrong for defending him." She told me she'd already told Raymond off, which shocked me because mom usually keeps the peace. But watching her granddaughter get torn apart flipped something in her. She said, "You do what you need to do, baby." Nana Pearl called that same evening and said, "I didn't raise this family so grown men could tear down little girls. You cut that money off and don't look back. And tell Bria her Nana says she plays like an angel." I cried. Nana Pearl doesn't give speeches, so when she talks you listen. Aunt Denise backed me too. She said, "That boy has been coasting off everyone's generosity for years and giving nothing back." 3 women in my family, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, all had my back. And that strength. I needed it. Because Marcus was about to make things ugly. He didn't call for almost a week. I think he assumed I was bluffing or that our dad would fix it like always. But when the school called him about the missing payment, reality hit. He texted me, "Seriously, Jolene? You're really doing this?" I wrote back one line, "Seriously, Marcus? I am." He called an hour later and he wasn't apologetic. He was furious. He said I was punishing Sloane for something that wasn't her fault. He said I was being vindictive. He actually said, "You're ruining a child's education because your feelings got hurt." My feelings? My daughter was the one who got hurt. I told him, "Marcus, you stood in front of our family and told a 10-year-old she wasn't good enough. And you want to talk about ruining a child?" Silence. Then he said something that showed me he still didn't understand. I was just being honest. Someone had to say it. Like cruelty is honesty. I hung up. Then my dad tried a new approach. Raymond showed up at my house unannounced, sat in my kitchen, drank my coffee and said, "Marcus is going to lose that school for Sloane. Is that what you want?" I said, "Dad, what I wanted was for my brother not to insult my daughter. But we don't always get what we want." He called me cold. He said family shouldn't hold money over each other's heads. And that one stung, because he made it sound like I was weaponizing money when I was just stopping the charity. There's a difference, right? Tell me I'm not crazy. Derek told my dad respectfully, "Raymond, Jolene helped Marcus for 4 years without owing him a thing." My dad just shook his head and left. Meanwhile, Bria was struggling. She'd been quiet since the barbecue. One night she came to me and said, "Mom, am I really behind the other kids?" My heart shattered. Marcus's words had gotten inside her head. I pulled her close and said, "Baby, you are extraordinary. Uncle Marcus was wrong and mean and nothing he said was true." She looked at me and whispered, "Then why did he say it? How do you explain adult pettiness to a 10-year-old? I called Miss Calloway, her violin teacher, and told her Bria's confidence had taken a hit. She was amazing about it, gave Bria extra encouragement and signed her up for a local youth recital. When Bria came home smiling again, I knew I'd made the right decision. Nobody was going to dim my daughter's light. But Marcus? He was sinking. Without my money, the bills were stacking up. He couldn't cover tuition and the mortgage at the same time. My cousin Rochelle told me he'd been calling around the family asking for loans and nobody was helping. Turns out when you insult a little girl at a barbecue, people remember. My dad tried one more time. He called and said, "What if Marcus apologizes? Would you start paying again?" I said, "Dad, this isn't about an apology anymore. For 4 years I carried my brother and instead of gratitude he attacked my child. That doesn't get fixed with sorry." He called me stubborn. Maybe I was. But sometimes stubborn is exactly what you need to be. What I didn't know was that Marcus was starting to crack. Not just financially, emotionally. Rochelle told me he'd been sitting in his car in the driveway just staring at nothing. Part of me felt bad. He's still my brother. But the bigger part of me knew he needed this lesson. You don't bite the hand that feeds you and then complain when the food stops. Something was coming though. Something I didn't expect at all. Because what Marcus did next, I've replayed it in my head 100 times and I still get emotional thinking about it. But you'll hear everything because this story isn't finished yet. It was a Tuesday evening about 3 weeks after I cut the payments. I was in the kitchen making dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti, and Bria was at the table doing homework. Derek was still at work. Normal night. Then the doorbell rang. I opened the door and Marcus was standing there. And I almost didn't recognize him. Not physically, I mean his energy. He looked smaller somehow. His eyes were red. He wasn't standing the way Marcus usually stands, all chest out and confident. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. And he was holding Sloane's hand. Sloane was looking at the ground. I didn't say anything. I just stood in the doorway and waited. Because honestly, I didn't know if this was going to be another fight or something else entirely. What would you have done? Would you have let him in or closed the door? Marcus opened his mouth and his voice cracked. He said, "Jolene, I need to talk to you." I crossed my arms and said, "So talk." I wasn't going to make this easy. Not after everything. He took a breath and said, "I messed up. I know I messed up. What I said about Bria at the barbecue, it was disgusting. There's no excuse for it. I was jealous and angry and I took it out on a 10-year-old and I've been sick about it ever since." Then he looked down at Sloane and nudged her gently. Sloane looked up at me with these big watery eyes and said, "Aunt Jolene, I'm sorry I said Bria was showing off. She's really good at violin and I was just mad because nobody asks me to do anything at family stuff." And I'll be honest, that broke me a little. Because Sloane is a kid. She's 12. She was just feeling left out and instead of helping her find her own thing to shine at, Marcus turned it into a war with my daughter. That wasn't Sloane's fault. That was his. I looked at Marcus and said, "Come inside." We sat at the kitchen table. Bria came in from the other room and froze when she saw Marcus. She looked at me like, "What's happening?" I said, "It's okay, baby. Uncle Marcus wants to say something to you." And Marcus, I watched my big brother, the golden child, the football star, look at my 10-year-old daughter and say with tears running down his face, "Bria, I am so sorry. What I said about you is a lie. You are talented and special and I was wrong. I was so wrong and I hope you can forgive me one day." Bria stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, "You really hurt my feelings, Uncle Marcus." Just like that. Simple and direct. No drama. And Marcus nodded and said, "I know I did. And I'll spend as long as it takes making it up to you." Then Bria did something that surprised all of us. She walked over to Sloane and said, "Do you want to hear the new piece I'm learning? I can teach you how to do the easy part." Sloane's face just lit up. These two kids, in about 30 seconds, figured out what the adults couldn't manage in weeks. Can you imagine? Sometimes I think children understand more about forgiveness than any of us. The girls went off to Bria's room and I sat across from Marcus in the quiet kitchen. And I could tell he wanted to ask about the money. I could see it sitting right behind his eyes. So I said it for him, "Marcus, I forgive you, but I'm not starting the payments again." His face fell. He said, "Jolene, I can't afford." I put my hand up. "Let me finish. For 4 years I carried you. Tuition, mortgage, everything. And not once did you sit me down and say thank you, really thank you, or ask me how my business was doing or offer to help me with anything. I was your safety net and you treated me like I owed you that. I didn't. I did it because I love you. But love doesn't mean letting someone use you forever." He started to argue and then he stopped. Because he knew I was right. You could see it on his face. That painful moment when someone hears the truth and can't deny it anymore. I told him, "You're a grown man, Marcus. You need to figure this out. Talk to the school about a payment plan. Pick up extra work. Ask Tamara to split the tuition. There are options, but I'm not one of them anymore. Not like that. He sat there for a while just nodding slowly. Then he said something that actually surprised me. He said, "You sound like Nana Pearl." And despite everything I laughed. Because honestly, that might be the best compliment anyone's ever given me. When Derek got home that night and I told him what happened, he said, "So he finally showed up." I said, "He did. And I think he actually means it this time." Derek raised an eyebrow. He's a skeptic, my husband, but he said, "Well, we'll see." And here's what happened after that. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. It wasn't instant. Real change never is, right? But Marcus started making moves. He talked to Sloan's school and got on a reduced payment plan. He picked up some weekend contracting work. He even called our dad and told him to stop pressuring me, which honestly might have been the most shocking development of all. Raymond calling me to say, "Marcus told me to back off." I almost dropped my phone. My mom told me that Marcus came to Sunday dinner at Nana Pearl's and actually stood up and said to the family, "I owe Jolene an apology and I owe Bria an apology. What I did was wrong and my sister showed me more generosity than I deserved for 4 years. I'm not going to waste that lesson." Nana Pearl apparently nodded once and said, "Good. Now sit down and eat. That woman is everything." Even my dad came around eventually. Raymond called me one Saturday morning and said, in his very Raymond way, "I may have been too hard on you. That's about as close to an apology as you'll ever get from my father, and honestly, I'll take it." He also said, "Your mother threatened to make me sleep on the porch if I didn't call you. So thanks, Mom." Uncle Victor never apologized for the petty voicemail, but he did show up to Bria's youth recital and clapped the loudest. I'll count that. And that recital? Oh, let me tell you about that recital. Bria performed in front of about 200 people. She played so beautifully that the instructor asked her to do an encore. My mom was sobbing. Aunt Denise was sobbing. Nana Pearl was sitting in the front row with her arms crossed, nodding like a queen watching her empire flourish. And Marcus? Marcus was there. He sat in the back row with Sloan, and when Bria finished he stood up and clapped. Sloan was cheering. And after the show, Marcus walked up to Bria, kneeled down and said, "You were incredible, kid." Bria smiled and said, "Thanks, Uncle Marcus. I've been practicing." I stood there watching my brother hug my daughter and I thought, this is what family is supposed to feel like. Not perfect. Not without scars. But willing to grow. Willing to be wrong and then do better. Do I still help Marcus? Not financially. That chapter is closed and it's staying closed. That's my verdict. But I help him in other ways now. I watched Sloan last weekend so he could work overtime. He helped Derek fix our fence last month. It's different now, it's balanced. It's what it should have been all along. Bria still plays violin at every family gathering. And now Sloan sits in the front row every time. Last week she told Bria, "When you're famous, you better get me backstage passes." Bria said, "Only if you save me a seat at your graduation." These two girls turned a family mess into a friendship, and honestly they're braver than any of us adults ever were. So that's my story. A barbecue, a push, a broken brother, and a 10-year-old who taught the whole family what it means to stand up for yourself and still have room in your heart to forgive. I didn't get the apology I expected. I got something better. A brother who finally grew up, a daughter who knows her worth, and a Nana Pearl quote I'll carry forever. You don't shrink so other people feel tall. You shine and you let them find their own light. If you enjoyed this story, I'd really love it if you hit that like button. And if there's something you didn't agree with, maybe you think I was too harsh or not harsh enough, or you would have handled it completely differently, tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know, because every time I tell this story someone sees something I missed. And honestly, that's why I shared it. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. It means more than you know. It means more than you know.